I've learned a lot through a couple years of living. The up and downs and the choices that we given, and the decisions that we make as a price of it.
I am 28 years old. I live in San Francisco, California. If I were to describe myself, I think the best way to do so would be to say that I am a guy who, since I was a little kid, always wanted to help people. My life, I've enjoyed athletics, football, wrestling. I am a person who loves my family, has a very deep faith in a higher power. I guess to sum it all up, I'm a man of faith, family, and empathy. What do I do for fun is the next question. Well, I'm married, so some would say I don't have any fun. Certainly my friends would say that because they all go out to bars and clubs and act silly while I'm at home writing, reading, or having just a wonderful conversation with my wife. And that's our fun. Some of the things we do together are going to the latest independent films. We love film. And we also go with my great uncle, who's a independent film aficionado, if you will. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features. I was diagnosed at the age of 17 and a half, my junior year in high school. I could barely go to school. I was so sick. I became extremely paranoid, terribly depressed. I had awful manic periods where I would go and do things that made absolutely no sense and were filled with grandiosity. I would also have auditory and visual hallucinations. I would hear voices, and I would see things that didn't exist to anyone but me. That is what happened, and it was devastating to me, and it was devastating to my family. I had a biological predisposition to the disease, bipolar disorder. Both of my birth parents had been diagnosed with it. As a matter of fact, my birth mother had been triply diagnosed with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and a drug and alcohol problem. And they would leave me and brother Jordash alone on a regular basis as infants, until one day a motel clerk called the police and we were turned into social services. And that's what got the ball rolling for Patrick and Debbie to adopt me and make me their son. Typical day in my life is working with several organizations in the city, in the state, and in the country on suicide prevention initiatives. I travel the country on a regular basis talking about prevention of suicide, living mentally healthy. We need to teach how to live mentally healthy. I'm a young man who's been in the trenches of the mental illness for 10 years. Luckily and blessedly, I have been given a family that completely understands mental illness. Maybe they didn't when I was first diagnosed, but they certainly do now. And now that I'm married to a woman who knew when she met me my situation, and she married me anyway, which was a bet most people wouldn't be willing to take. My father in particular has been there for me every step of the way, and he's saved me from a lot of hardship. My wife is very forgiving, loving, and caring, and so when I have an episode of either mania, depression, or any kind of psychosis, she stays very calm, and she basically talks me out of the episode. I'm lucky to have become so self-aware that I know, A, when I'm getting manic, B, when I'm getting depressed, C, when I'm getting paranoid and it's irrational, and D, when I become suicidal. Just recently, I had a break and my medication stopped working, and I had an episode of psychosis, an episode of bipolar disorder, and I had to end up going back to the hospital after 5 years of living mentally healthy with a strict routine of diet, exercise, medication, and therapy. But even though I was doing all of that, I still had a terrible psychotic break, and I thought of suicide. Taking these medications for as long as I have, which has basically been since 1999. Right at the end of the night, I get the jitters. My hands shake, my legs shake, my body feels like it's shaking, but no one else can see it. There are a few other side effects that I have on a regular basis, even while taking a medication to stave off the side effects. So, it is troubling, but I get through it. The worst or most embarrassing thing that's happened because of my illness, for me, and it's something I had to really swallow my pride and let go, was when this last time I was 5150'd, after I walked into my clinic and told them I needed to be 5150'd, which is very rare. The police were there to escort me to psychiatric emergency services. I had never had a run-in like this with the police in my entire life. This time I had to stand up, put my hands behind my back, be placed on the back of a squad car, and handcuffed in front of a cafe that I had gone to for 10 years. I go to therapy almost every day. Cognitive behavioral therapy at a clinic, as well as individual therapy with my case manager and psychologist. I see my psychiatrist every 3 Fridays or so to take a look at my medications, take a look at my side effects. So I'm very, very specific as to what I need to do to cope with this disease. Talk therapy, medication, education as to my disease, so I read a lot about it, and the new treatments, and also vigorous exercise, cardiovascular exercise releases endorphins and you feel better. But most of the time I'm eating very healthily, and that really helps me stay on track mentally. Why would I want to document living mentally with mental illness on video is a very simple question. You remember when I said I like to help people? That's the reason. So you can tell my story on a much wider basis, and you could potentially save lives, not necessarily with what I say, but with the message that you portray of hope, future, and a life lived well while having a mental illness. All right, so what is my daily routine? Why is this going to help other people? Well, I wake up between 5 and 7 every morning. I give myself a 2-hour window. I wake up, I put on my workout gear, and I go for a run. I work out for another 20 minutes with weights and with various plyometrics. And I run home, and I make coffee for myself and my wife. Is right there. And it's filled right now because, well, at 1:30 in the afternoon, I felt like coffee. And that's okay. Max. This is Max the Shar-Pei. He is quite simply the greatest dog on the face of the planet, so you can't tell me that's not true. I work from home most of the time. I go straight to my computer and I reach out to schools, I reach out to churches, I reach out to anyone who's interested in having me come and speak to them. But more importantly, I sit down and I write. Right now I'm writing my book. I'm writing my book and I'm on chapter 5. I did the last chapter because it just popped into my head. And interestingly enough, I have drawings of the first designs of the Brooklyn and the Golden Gate by a very interesting artist. And so we go up here. This is a painting I drew, or painted rather, in an outpatient unit. You go to for 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. To do therapy all day long. This was after my second psych ward stay. My father gave this to me, and it is a Charles Schulz personal message. My father's name is Patrick, and it says, to Patrick, with best wishes, Charles M. Schulz. What I'm doing now is I'm creating a couple of books, and when they come to me, I just write them and go in between all three. And here is a quote I'm just going to share with you called "Loneliness to Godliness." Sometimes, no matter how many people love, care, and surround me, I feel alone. All I really need to do is pick up the damn phone. Make that call, hear that voice, hear that friendly tone. What if no one picks up? What if they've forgotten about me? My mind fights valiantly with my soul. My breath can no longer breathe, my eyes can no longer see. I begin to look through a very dark and dismal and painful tunnel vision. Now it's time to make the most crucially important life decision. The decision is to live and not to die. No way, no how. Death by my own hands will never be the answer. Just like I pray not to be diagnosed with a terminal form of cancer. All of my writings, and of course my upcoming book, and we'll just see how it goes. So that's what I do, and I love it. So, yeah.
Yeah, some people know the truth and all the shit that I've been through. Diamond in the rough, it's time to convince you I'm out to change the world, that's all that I'm into. Even though a couple true friends is essential. Before you think big, boy, you gotta think simple. Build your foundation and focus your mental.